I am Matthew. Hello everybody and welcome to the Dice Check channel. I am Magikarp Usefly, and today we are going over something that is very dear to my heart. We are going over a Tyranids unit tier list. That's right, we're going to be talking about all of the Tyranid units in the Tyranid Codex, also in Forge World, and we are ranking them from S tier all the way down to D tier. We're going to talk about which ones are the good ones, which units are bad, why they're bad. I think I got all of them. I could be wrong. Going over this whole thing, Tyranids are my favorite army in the entire game, so making this tier list actually means a lot to me because, you know, I love these models so much. I love the Tyranid army so much. Now, mind you, I am not a pro player. Look at my face. Whoever's editing this, zoom in on my face. I am not a pro player. But I am awesome. So if you guys find that what I'm saying doesn't make sense to you, or if you disagree, go ahead and leave a comment below. Let's just try to bolster the Tyranid hive mind. Let's go, Hive brothers, let's go. So we're gonna go through this. We're gonna go from HQs over to troops, down to elites, fast attack, heavy support, Lord of Wars, all that good stuff. And let's start with the HQs. We're gonna go straight with this Tyranid Prime. Tyranid Prime is D tier. I fucking hate the Tyranid Prime. I hate the fact that I have to bring it if I want to bring warriors. It does give you +1 to your hit roll for both your melee attacks and for your shooting. So it's nice to bring him. I just hate him. I don't like taking him. It pisses me off. I hate him because as a standalone unit, he just sucks. You know, he's just like a little bit tankier of a Tyranid warrior, but still not that great. He's just D tier. I don't like him. Okay, going back over to some of our other HQs, let's talk about the Broodlord. The Broodlord, this is a stark contrast between the two, right? Because the Tyranid Prime sucks in all regards, but the Broodlord is actually really good. I really like the Broodlord. He gets advance and charge, which is great. He gets 6 attacks, rerolling all failed wound rolls. He has monstrous scything talons, so he's dealing 3 damage flat. Oh no, it's monstrous rending claws. My bad, not scything talons. In all, I think that he's fine. I wouldn't say that he's S tier though. I would probably put him in A tier. We're gonna save the S tier for the creme de la creme. You can definitely take him, but he's not an auto take. Now, an HQ that is definitely an auto take is the Neurothrope. The Neurothrope is so good. The Neurothrope moves 5 inches, but because he is a Zoanthrope, he gets to reroll his psychic rolls of 1. I think that compared to things like a Librarian, he's a little bit overcosted, but he can cast 2 psychic powers just straight up. You can give him a Resonance Barb to give him +1 to his psychic test. I think that he's good. And then if you want to fill out like an HQ detachment, the Neurothrope is definitely a way to go, especially if you want to cast something like Symbiostorm. The Neurothrope, hands down, an auto take unit. You're always gonna see it in a list. This one makes me sad, the Hive Tyrant. It makes me sad because the Hive Tyrant is probably my favorite model in the Tyranids Codex. Him, Haruspex, Swarmlord, Moloch, all 4 of those guys are like my favorite models in the Tyranids Codex, like just design wise. And like, he just sucks now. They've upped his point cost so much, I would put him down in D tier. Definitely above the Tyranid Prime though.
Oh, hey there, Future Matt here. This video was recorded before the FAQ dropped. That means that we didn't see a lot of the new points drops, and because of that, Flying Hive Tyrant, square in the A tier. Such a good unit now. Went down in price by so much. I think that you can bring a Flying Hive Tyrant now for only 205 points, and as well as to bring it down changes, he doesn't give up a lot of points as well, so if you bring like 1 or 2 of them, still really good. Gives you your psychic powers, moves 16 inches, also a decent beat stick as well that you can put Murderous Size on, can put him up the board and then sling him back with Overrun. For its points cost now, I think it's really good. Put him square in the A tier, really great. I think that maybe putting him in D tier in the first place was a little bit too much anyways, maybe like around C tier, but definitely in the A tier right now.
Next up, the Malinthrope. Now, the Malinthrope is a Forge World model, costs 150 points now from the new Forge World book, and they did upgrade him. He's not exactly the same. He has a 6-inch aura to give you -1 to hit rolls. You know, enemies get -1 to their hit rolls when targeting units within 6 inches of him from like ranged attacks, which is good. Another great thing about him is that before he would let you reroll, I believe, hit rolls if he was in engagement range, but now he only has to be within 3 inches. And if a model is killed within 3 inches around him, like an enemy model is killed within 3 inches around him, then he gives you reroll failed wound rolls of 1, which is pretty decent. The only problem is just that he only moves 5 inches. It's the same thing as a Neurothrope. You'd have to bust Metabolic Overdrive on him in order to keep him up with the rest of your army. Unfortunately, for 150 points, he doesn't provide any psychic powers, so I would put him in A tier at the very least. I would put him behind the Broodlord. I think the Broodlord offers way more to your army than the Malynthrope will. And now for the big boy, one of my favorite HQs in the entire game, the Swarmlord. It's almost S tier, but not quite there. He is definitely an A tier. I would put him above the Broodlord. I think that the Swarmlord just has so much utility that it offers you in the game for your army. He hits on 2s, which is good. He gets like 7 attacks or something, strength 8. In melee combat, he has a 3-up invuln. The only thing that holds him back is just that he does not benefit from Lookout Sir. And because of that, it's kind of hard to let him survive for a long amount of time if you don't have enough threats on the board. In order to get your units out onto the board more quickly, I think that the Swarmlord is just amazing. In general, I think that he is pretty good. Swarmlord, definitely A tier. So the next HQ that we have here is going to be the Tervigon. I'm going to put him in C tier. It's nice that he can spawn more Termagants. If you bring like 2 of them, you can definitely spawn a lot of Termagants into your army, and they wouldn't cost reinforcement points if you're just like refilling an already existing unit. And he is T8 with a 3-up save, but for his points cost, you could just put in more Termagants and it will perform way better than putting in a Tervigon. That being said, he is a cool model. I just don't think that he's that great. For another HQ, we got the one, the only Old One Eye. I'm gonna put him in B tier. I think that Old One Eye has the potential to be okay. So he moves 7 inches, so you're probably always going to just advance him all the time. He does benefit from Lookout Sir. He definitely smacks in combat, which is very, very nice. He regens 1 wound per turn. You know what? I'm actually gonna put him in C tier. He has a 3-up save. Not a lot of people bring vehicles anymore. It's very infantry heavy, so I don't think he's that great. I would say that he is at least better than Gene Stealers as of right now, even though he's worse. He only gets like 5 attacks. With his 5 attacks, you have to subtract 1 from the hit roll. He's not too, okay, my bad. He's not actually too bad. I'll put him in B tier. Okay, I believe those are all of the HQs that we have, so we're gonna go on to our troops next. Now, I'm just gonna get this out of the way. I'm gonna rip the band-aid right now. Gene Stealers, I think, are in C tier, which makes me very, very upset because Gene Stealers were my favorite units to run in the Tyranids army. They are what made me love Tyranids so much because of their advance and charge and the Swarmlord. Just like that entire combo, being able to yeet Gene Stealers across the board is why I fell in love with them in the first place. That was my gateway drug, were Gene Stealers. But with their points cost going up to 15 points per model, man, it's rough, dude. Like bringing 20 Gene Stealers costs 300 points. That is insane. For 300 points, you can get some Hive Guard, and the Hive Guard will perform way better than the Gene Stealers can. That being said, Gene Stealers are also our best chaff clearing unit. Every other unit in the Tyranids Codex cannot really deal with like 30 boys or like 30 pink horrors. Not whores, horrors. Horrors. Not whores. Yeah, because of that, I don't think that they're that great anymore. If they were back to 12 points, then yeah, I would say that they would be in A or B tier. I don't think that they're worth it as of right now though, which sucks because I love them. Hold on, I got a text, I think. No, I didn't. Nobody loves me. This video's a shit show. Let's go with Termagants. Termagants, easily A tier. Almost an auto take, honestly. They're just really good. But the only reason why I don't put them as an auto take or like an S tier, one, it only has a 12-inch range. They're not going to do anything in melee combat. If they get out of Synapse range, they just die. Their leadership is like 5. There's so much that can go wrong for them. They definitely tar pit really, really nicely. There's so much that you can do with them. I think that they're really, really good. It's just that I wish that they could do more. And then our next troop that we're going to talk about are Hormagaunts. Hormagaunts, I'm in a love-hate relationship with them. I think that Termagants are just better, but Hormagaunts, they do have the ability to move 8 inches and they can consolidate 6 inches, but usually whatever they go into combat with, they're just going to die. But being able to move 8 inches does let them get on objectives faster than Termagants. I'm gonna put them in A tier because they can still perform decently well. I don't think that they're that bad. I think that they do have a place. Next troop, Ripper Swarms. S tier, 100% S tier. You should always have Ripper Swarms in your army. They deep strike, they're incredibly small, so that means that you can actually put them inside of L-shaped terrains. They're great units. Absolutely love them. You should always take them. If you can, take at least 2. At the bare minimum, 2 Ripper Swarms. They'll get you engaged on all fronts. They'll get you objective secured. There's so much that they can do. Love them. Absolutely good units. Always take them. At least 2. Tyranid Warriors. Where are these fuckers? I'd put them in A tier, strictly just because of unyielding chitin and adaptive physiologies. This is one of the reasons why most of the units down here are at C and D tier, is because the adaptive physiologies are really, really big, and putting them on Tyranid warriors is so good. You know, you can give them ignoring AP -1, ignoring AP -2, which is great because they only have a 4-up save. So if you put them into melee combat and they're up against something that has AP -1, AP -2, then at least you're saving on force because they just completely ignore it. I think that that's really, really good. And then if they're getting shot at by any type of ranged weapon, you could just pop unyielding chitin and decrease the damage by 1, which is insanely good. Put them with a Tyranid Prime, and then they're hitting on 2s. If you give them bone swords, they get 36 attacks hitting on 2s. And there's so much that Tyranid warriors do outside of just like shooting and attacking. The only caveat to them is that they have a 4-up save. I definitely put them in A tier. I don't think that they're an auto take. There are other stuff that you can take, like Gaunt spam and stuff like that, but they are very good. I would put them better than a Brood Lord, even better than Swarm Lord. No, not better than Swarm Lord. Swarm Lord's Hive Commander ability is just way too good. Tyranid warriors, pretty good. Bring them if you can. If not, you know, that's fine too.
Tyranid warriors went down in points, putting in a squad of 9 with Scything Talons only cost 17 points. That means that a full squad of 9 only costs 153 points if you just deck them out with Scything Talons. That means that you get essentially a T4, ignoring AP1, ignoring AP2, plus -1 damage to ranged weapons, 3 wound unit for only 153 points with OBSEC. Yeah, that's good. That's like top of A tier right now.
And I think those are all of the troops. Whoa, let's go to elites. Let's just get this out of the way. Hive Guard. I'm in a love-hate relationship with them. A lot of people think that they are auto takes. I argue that they aren't. They're good units because if you bring them in as a group of 6 in Chronos, they hit on 3s, re-rolling 1s, they ignore line of sight, they're AP -2, they ignore cover saves, they're D3 damage, plus you can pop 2 CP in order to let them shoot twice. There's so much stuff going for them, and I think that it's good. But I think they're on like the bottom side of S tier, just because they are 300 points. These are 300 points for 6 models.
Hey guys, Future Matt here again. Hive Guard dropped in points. Now a squad of 6 only costs 270 points instead of 300. Comparatively to what it was before, I was a little bit like, S tier, not really. I think it's a little bit much of a point cost of 300 points plus 2 CP per turn. Also, the damage is only D3, but with it costing only 270 points, I'm very, very okay with it being in the S tier. I think that's great.
I would argue that they would be A tier, but I know that if I do, people would get upset and they would say, no, they should be in S tier. So I'm just gonna put them in S tier to make people happy. But for me, I don't like them. I'm not a big fan of Hive Guard. I don't think that they're as good as what people say that they are. I think that there are better options than Hive Guard for 300 points. Going on to the next elites here. Tyrant Guard, I would put them in like around C tier. They are definitely more tanky than Tyranid warriors. Now there's some good stuff about Tyrant Guard. They are T5. They have a 3-up save, which makes them better than Tyranid warriors. The only problem, if I recall correctly, let me double check. Oof. Yeah, so they cost 120 points for just 3 of them. That's pretty damn expensive for a unit, especially for a horde army. 120 points for Tyrant Guards, I don't think is worth it. They don't have a lot of stratagems that really help them out. I don't think that they're that great. We're just gonna move on from them. I would put them at D tier, but they are tanky and they move 7 inches, so I don't think that they're garbage tier, but they're at least C tier. Another elite here, the Lictor. Lictor is S tier. The Lictor is probably like the best unit in the Tyranids Codex. Definitely up there. The Lictor is an auto take. You can choose to not bring in Neurothrope. You have to bring a Lictor. Lictors are so good. The fact that they can deploy Scramblers is insane, and their base size is so small that you can literally put them almost anywhere outside of Auspex scan. In your enemy's deployment zone, you can put them in the middle of the battlefield. They just sneak in and just guarantee you basically just 10 points. Their stats, absolutely garbage though. They will not kill anything, and it only gets like 3 attacks. So it's like, it's not a good unit by any means. The only thing they use it for is literally just for deploy Scramblers. I would say bring 2 of them. If you bring 2 of them, that is guaranteed deploy Scramblers. Extremely cheap units, love them. So good. And then we go into the Death Leaper and the Red Terror, like the character versions of a Lictor. They're garbage. They're not good at all. We're just gonna put them straight up into D tier. Where's the red tier? Where's that fucker at? I know that he's here somewhere. Where is he? I don't think I put him in here. Just imagine that he's in here. He would be in D tier. The reason why the Lictor is so good is because he's not a character. We already said that his stats are awful. Death Leaper, same thing. Stats, terrible. These guys definitely not that great. Even their abilities aren't that great. I would say just skip them. Lictor, A-okay. Good unit. Zoanthropes. Zoanthropes, I think that they're A tier. They're very, very good. I think that they're better than Hormagaunts. No, they're slightly worse just because they're so expensive. They're T4 with a 3-up invuln. They can do psychic power, so you have your mortal wound spam. If you bring them in a group of 6, you do get, I think it's D3 plus 3 mortals off of doing smite. Their smite becomes 24 inches. It's actually pretty nuts the amount of damage that you can get off with a unit of Zoanthropes at like 6 or even 5. The only thing that holds them back is that they're not OBSEC. You know what? Because of that, I think I might put them in B tier just because they don't have OBSEC and they do move relatively slow. I don't think that they are incredibly good. Okay, next up, the big boy, the Malishceptor. Ooh, where's he gonna go? Where's he gonna go? Where's he gonna go? Is he gonna go in S tier? Is he going in A tier? Maybe in B tier? In C tier? Maybe it's in D tier. Oh, it's B tier. We're gonna put him in B. The Malceptor is good. So he's T7 with a 4-up invuln. And the reason why a lot of people like him is because of the stratagem. I believe it's called Encephalic Diffusion, which I don't think is that great. It does cost 2 CP and you have to spend it at the start of a turn. It's not when something is targeted. It's 2 CP at the start of a turn, and everything that's like within 6 inches of it, whatever weapon is being shot at them, you -1 from the strength of that weapon. Like I said before, Tyranids are already super CP heavy. It's such a huge CP sink that I don't think that it's worth it at all. He's definitely better than Old One Eye. Yeah, I think that the Malceptor is good, but I think that's too much of a CP cost. But you can definitely run him if you like him. Next up, we got Venomthropes. Venomthropes, I would put them in C tier, but I want to put them in B tier just because there's an argument to be made that the Venomthrope can be better than the Malanthrope in certain situations. Now, Venomthropes do get the same thing that a Malanthrope does, where it's -1 to hit. But what Venomthropes can do, which a lot of people take into account, is that with Venomthropes, if you have them on the field, they kind of act like as almost a shield. People are going to want to focus the Venomthropes first instead of the other units, which means that your other units are going to survive a little bit longer and get into like melee combat or get into the areas that they want to. I feel like that if I put them in B tier, people will be upset. So I'm just going to put them in C tier instead. Pyrovores. Pyrovores, I think, are garbage. They're absolutely garbage. I'm down to put them in D tier. They do get a D6 flamer that is strength 5 -1 damage, but they only get 1, so you'd have to bring like a group of 5 to get 5 D6 flamers. Can it go up to a group of 5? No, it has to be a group of 3, my bad. So you can bring them up to a group of 3, so that's 3 D6 flamers. If you want to use some type of good flamer, you're better off souping in something like Genestealer Cults in order to get Acolyte hybrids or Neophyte hybrids, whatever they're called, to use their hand flamers instead, and they'll probably perform better. But you can strategic reserve them in order to get some flamers off if you really want it. You know what? I'll put them at C tier. They're at the bottom of C tier. No. I'm gonna stick to my guns this time. I'm sticking to my guns this time. I'm putting them in D tier. The Haruspex. God, I love this model. I wish that was just slightly better. In the Tyranids Codex, he's one of the better monsters that are out there, but at the same time, he's not. You can give him murderous size in order for him to deal more damage. The fact that he gets 4 D3 attacks is nuts, and then whenever he does kill something, he can just gain more attacks with Shoveling Claws. So he's like one of the only things in this army that can deal with chaff units. He's way better than a Turvagon in my opinion, but the only thing that I don't like about him is that he only moves like 7 inches. So unless you're yeeting him with the Swarm Lord, he's not going to get into melee combat very quickly. He doesn't have like an invuln unless you give him Dermic Symbiosis, but like I said, using any type of adaptive physiology on things that aren't S or A tier units, I think is kind of silly. But he's definitely a cool model. I love the model. If you just want to run the Haruspex, I fucking hell yeah. You should run him just because fuck it, dude. He's so cool. He's such a cool unit. Nice. So now we can move over to fast attack. Oh, gargoyles. Oh. Okay, so gargoyles, I'd put them in B tier. I think that because they have a deep strike, that makes them pretty good. With that deep strike, you are able to do stuff like deploy scramblers. They are great for getting you engaged on all fronts. With a 12-inch movement, they can get around the board very quickly. That's pretty much it. Everything else though, they just die. The only drawback is that they are 7 points a model. So for one group of them, it is 70 points. Because they are infantry though, they are able to be action monkeys as well, and very fast action monkeys too. Unlike Hormigons and Termagants, they get a 12-inch move and they have fly, so they can just go straight over terrain. Yeah, I think that they're B tier. I would say that they are more reliable than an old One-Eye, especially for getting points. So I think that Gargoyles are totally fine. Sky Slasher Swarms, I believe, are fast attack. Yes, they are. Yeah, yeet. They're just worse gargoyles because they are swarm and they're not infantry. Gargoyles are infantry, which makes it okay for them to be action monkeys. Sky Slasher Swarms are just way worse gargoyles. I put them in D tier. I think that they're absolutely garbage. They're not good. That's all I'm going to talk about with them. Let's see here. Raveners. Okay, I would either put them in C or D. Honestly, I think that I might put them in D tier. They do get to move 12 inches, so they are like a little bit faster Hormigons, if anything, but they are kind of expensive. You know what? They're actually not D tier. I'd put them in C tier. Yeah, they're fine. They won't do anything in melee combat. These are just more action monkeys. You know what? You can make an argument for even B tier. If Gargoyles can be in B tier, Raveners can also be in B tier. In fact, these two can be totally interchangeable. Sure, yeah. Yeah, not bad. Okay, Meiotic Spores. Meiotic Spores were good for a little small tiny bit before the new Forge World book dropped. Before, you were able to deploy them out onto the field during the deployment phase, and they would work kind of like infiltrators, right? Now, because of the new Forge World update, they don't do that. They just have Deep Strike, basically. Before that, though, I would say that they were A tier because you can move them up the board and body block, and you can like deny areas where your opponent can be at. But now, I think that they're just garbage. They're just worse Spore Mines. I don't like them. I think that they're bad. I'm not even gonna talk about them anymore. Mucilid Spores, same thing. It's way too expensive for something that Spore Mines can do. You know what? We'll just talk about Spore Mines. Spore Mines are definitely A tier. Not like the actual unit. The actual unit, I would put it in B tier. You can block off a large chunk of the board with Spore Mines. The only problem is just that now there's unit coherency with them. So you can't do as big of a block as you used to be able to, but it's definitely there. I would say like maybe bringing like 5 of them in order to block off like entryways, I think is totally fine. Yeah, Spore Mines, decent choice. I think that they're good. Okay, and then the Demacarian or the Demacaron. The Demacarian, S tier. 100% S tier. I think that the Demacarian is an auto take at this point. The Demacarian is just an amazing fucking unit. It is one of the best units that Tyranids have in their arsenal. They naturally have a 5-up invuln. They can get a 5-up Feel No Pain using their ability, and they get Flip Belt. They move 12 inches. They're 18 wounds. They're T7, 3-up save. I think that you should be bringing 3 of them at bare minimum, maybe 2, but you should definitely be running a Demacarian because it is just mwah. It is beautiful. Such a good unit, and it's a cool model. So you get the rule of cool. Him and the Scythe Hyrule, I think, are almost like borderline auto take units. Let's take a look at heavy support now. Biovores, I'd put them in B tier along with Spore Mines. I think that they're better than Spore Mines, obviously. I think that Biovores are good for move block. If you bring 9 of them and you can have one of them double tap with Single-Minded Annihilation, that's 12 Spore Mines that are all singular units that you can use to move block people. You don't want them to hit anything. You just want them to miss. You want to like shuffle them around and then just miss all the time. Make it so then they want to hit, that they hit on 5. So then you could pop Spore Mines onto the field and move block your enemy with them. I think that they're really good, but they're fucking expensive in real life. The models are, they're so expensive. It's like $1 per point, which is nuts. But yeah, I think that Biovores are really good, and that's what makes Spore Mines good, and it's pretty funny. All right, so now we can talk about Scythe Hyrule. The Scythe Hyrule is fucking insanely good. I love the Scythe Hyrule. In fact, I'd put him in A tier. I would put him even above Gaunts. You know what? Maybe like right here. Scythe Hyrule, he gets a 3d6 flamer that's 18 inches. He is T8, 18 wounds. Yeah, he doesn't benefit from obscuring, but he moves 12 inches and he's only 235 points. That is nuts. Such a good model. In close combat, he is killing off Blade Guard vets. He's killing off Thunderwolf Cav. He has, what, D3 plus 3 damage. He hits on 3s, re-rolling hit rolls of 1. Absolutely insane model. Even the 3d6 Flamer is good. It's strength 6, minus 2 AP, 1 damage. You can pop Pathogenic Slime on him, and that gives him 2 damage on a Flamer, which is nuts. Love it. I think that the Scythe Hyrule is almost an auto take. The Barbed Hyrule, though, I think is garbage. I think that the Barbed Hyrule is absolute straight fire garbage. He costs like 275 points. That is fucking expensive for this model. Yeah, he gets 12 shots and his gun is pretty decent. Strength 8 -2, 2 damage. He gets 12 shots of it. Hits on 3s, which is fine. He does get a 2-up save, but honestly, for 275 points, I don't think it's worth it when you can bring something like an Exocrine instead, which is 170 points and will do the Barb Howardle's job, but better. Okay, the Tyrannifex. A lot of people talk about the Tyrannifex now. There are some people that think that the Tyrannifex is good. I don't like him. I think the Tyrannifex is way too overcosted. I'm going to put him in D tier. He's T8, which is fine. His gun is decent. His flamer is okay. The fact that he moves 7 inches, though, isn't that great. So he has an 18-inch flamer that's heavy 2d6, strength 7, AP 1, D3 damage. If he stands still, then it's 4d6 because he gets to shoot it twice. I guess maybe that's fine. I don't know why I would ever bring a Tyrannifex when I could bring a Scythe Hierodule instead. What, he costs like 200 and something points for putting a Rupture Cannon on him. I don't think that's worth it when you could just bring an Exocrine instead, who will do his job, but do it better.
Hey guys, Future Matt here again. I'm so sorry that I keep interrupting, but you know, the Tyrannifex also went down in points. Most interesting is that it went down to 175 points with its acid weapon, which is really good. But also on top of that, its power level went down to 9. That means that you can strategic reserve him for only 1 CP. So if you want to get him onto the front line, you know, that means that only for 1 CP, you could put him onto like basically almost near an objective and kind of just have him sit there for the rest of the game. You won't get your double flamer shot until around turn 3, which isn't that great, but still for 175 points, he's decent. I'm okay with him. The D3 damage, I'm still not cool with, but you know what? He's better than what I put him at before. I would put him just slightly better, but still in that same bracket.
The Toxicrene. Okay, so the Toxicrene is another heavy support that I really like, but he just sucks in 9th edition because the map is smaller, and since there's so much terrain on the board now, you can't really move him through anything. So like, he's a cool model and his effect is actually pretty nice where you deny a fallback. The problem is just that he can't get anywhere. He can't fit through terrain because his model is so damn big. So there's no point in bringing him at all. He's at D tier at this point. Let's see. We're just gonna get through these Carnifexes because there's so many different variants of a Carnifex and they're all bad. Carnifexes suck. They are not good. They are T7. They have a 3-up save. You have to spend so much points on them. They can benefit from obscuring terrain. The base Carnifex, I think, is the best variant of a Carnifex. And then all the other Carnifexes, I think, are garbage, like the Screamer Killer, Thornbacks. We're just going to put all these over here. Even the Forge World ones, surprisingly enough, aren't as good as the Codex Carnifex. So, yeah, they're just not that great. They're pretty bad. Let's see. Molochs, I think, are actually pretty decent. I think that their ability to pop up and be kind of like a distraction Carnifex is good. I would actually put the Moloch somewhere around B tier, maybe B or like at the very top of C, just because of the ability that it has to deal mortal wounds. The damage that it's going to deal isn't that crazy. You can definitely deal a lot of mortal wounds. It's kind of like a discount Burn-A-Bomber, but what you really bring it for is for it to be a distraction Carnifex and for him to kind of just make your enemy ignore the rest of your army pushing up the board and have to focus on the Moloch, because it's really hard to not focus on something that is dangerously close to the rest of your army. The Trigon, though, I think is D tier. I think the Trigon is absolutely awful. The Trigon and the Trigon Prime. What you get out of a Trigon isn't worth it comparatively to something like a Lictor. You can use it to deep strike the rest of your army, but the Lictor can do the same thing for 1 CP, and it costs less, and it takes up less space as well. But the Trigon is still pretty damn cool. I mean, it's a cool unit. I just don't think it's that great. And then the last heavy support that we have here, the Exocrine, no surprise, S tier. One of the best units, not just in the Tyranids Codex, but just like almost in the entire game. The fact that you can cast Symbiostorm on him to give him exploding 5-ups because he modifies his hit roll by +1 and Symbiostorm can be modified. He's always getting extra attacks. He has flat 2 damage, -3 AP, strength 7. In all, it's a great unit and it's definitely an auto take unit. I think it's more of an auto take unit than a Hive Guard are, just because of how much sheer damage it can put out and how many amount of shots it can put out. Okay, cool. So now we have Fortifications. All right, the Sporicist. I actually thought that the Sporicist was going to be a great model for 9th edition just because you can move block a lot with the Spore Mines. But then GW said, nah, fuck that. Get rid of them. And Fortifications just got nerfed into the ground. You can only bring it if it has to be away from a terrain feature by like 3 inches, by more than 3 inches, which is very hard in 9th edition. It is almost impossible. And you're just gonna have to like roll a dice going into a game and being like, can this model fit? No? Okay, well, those are my points. I think it's absolutely stupid. Otherwise, I would have put the Spore Assist at A tier just because of how much movement blocking you can do with it, since it like lets out a bunch of Spore Mines per turn. Let's see. Oh, we didn't even go over Flyers. Let me go over Flyers. Yeah, they suck. So the Harpy and the Hive Crone are both not very good. I would actually say that the Harpy has an actual place. It does have a Strength 9 weapon with a heavy venom cannon, but it's only 1 in its D3 shots, so it's not that great. Also, it's only hitting on 4s. It's a flyer, it moves 30 inches, but all in all, I don't think it's that great. It's definitely C tier, borderline D tier. Dedicated transports. The Tyrannocyte is honestly probably one of the worst dedicated transports in the entire game. You can deep strike it, which is nice, and it gets like a bunch of death spitters, but it hits on 5s. Not that great, not a big fan of it. Honestly, I'd put it in D tier. I think all you do when you bring a Tyrannocyte is that you're giving up points and bring it down. I think it's an absolute garbage unit. If you're gonna transport something, you might as well just use a Lictor again in order to deep strike it. All right, and now let's talk about Lords of War. This is a fun one. The Hierophant. We'll start with the Hierophant. I think that the Hierophant is cool. Now with Forge World, they are still Lord of Wars, but they are a lot cheaper. You can actually bring a Hierophant now into a game, and it's totally fine. It costs like 850 points. If I could, I would say that's at least C tier, but because of how fucking big the model is, you can't actually fit it in your own deployment zone. So you have to forego your first turn of movement with it. So that's why I would say it's in D tier. The Harridan though, people might think I'm crazy, but I'm gonna put him in B tier. I think that the Harridan is actually really good. It's 34 wounds. The Harridan is 700 points. It is supersonic, so it gets -1 to hit. You can give it Dermic Symbiosis to give it a 5-up invuln, has a 3-up save. It is T8, which means that if you already bring something like a Scythe Hierodule, even taking that down all the way down to its bottom bracket is extremely hard to do. Now just imagine doing it with a Harridan that's also -1 to hit. It has a literal marine killer weapon. So honestly, I think that the Harridan is good. For 700 points, you get so much for it. It might not be B tier. I might just be fucking hopeful about that. If anything, it's C tier, but at the very least, top of C. That's it. Those are all of the fucking units in Tyranids. There we go. That's all. That's the entire tier list. Shit, there's so much stuff in D tier. Yeah, that's what I think at least. Obviously, this is up for interpretation because it is a tier list. So if you guys think that I'm wrong on certain things, or if you want to maybe talk about other stuff, what you think should be brought up in the tier list, leave a comment down below and let me know. This is just what I think after playing Tyranids for so long. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you guys like this video, make sure that you leave a thumbs up and make sure that you press the subscribe button. We will have more of these tier lists coming up. It'll be great. It's gonna be fun. Goodbye.